All right. So since it's a quartic polynomial to the fourth power, we got 4 zeros we're looking for. So we're going to put it in our calculator and see if we can see all 4 of them. X to the fourth minus 5x to the third plus x minus 5. All right. So I only see 2. So that means we're going to have to do some work to find the other 2. And remember, these imaginary ones, these non-real ones, come in pairs, right? So there's always going to be 2 imaginary coming in pairs, if there are imaginary. There won't be an odd number, there'll be an even number. Okay, so here's a 0. It looks to me like -1. 1, 2, 3, 4. And there's the 0. It looks like 5. I'm going to check my table just to make sure. Second graph for table, -1. Yep, there it is. And then I'm going to go down to 5, and that should be 1. Yeah. So I'll just throw the table out there too. Okay. So right here and right here is where it crosses the x-axis. Okay, we good on those 2? Now, what I'm going to have to do is use synthetic division to simplify or reduce this polynomial down to a quadratic. And then I'll either use the quadratic formula, the quadratic formula solve, or if my b is 0, like that one example we had yesterday, then we'll do it a little quicker using, just the square root method. All right, so does it matter which one of these zeros I start with when I do synthetic? Does not matter. I usually go in littlest to biggest, but it doesn't matter, right? So I'll put -1 here in my little corner. 1 for x to the fourth, -5 for x to the third, but what's missing? The 2, the x squared, right? So I put a 0. Then the 1 for the x, and then the -5. Drop my 1 below. -1 times 1 is -1. When I add those, I get -6. -1 times -6 is +6. When I add, I get 6. -1 times 6 is -6. When I add, I get -5. -1 times -5 is +5, and I get 0, and that's what's supposed to happen, right? If I don't get 0, I made a mistake. I have to check my work. Because the calculator told me -1's a 0, so that means there's no remainder when I do synthetic division. All right, it is a factor. If -1 is a 0, what's the factor? X plus 1. All right, we're going to get into that today. All right, now I do 5, and I just do it right there. I don't start over. I just go to that answer one there, that reduced polynomial. 5 times 1 is 5. When I add those, I get -1. 5 times -1 is -5. So when I add those, I get +1. 5 times 1 is 5. So I get 0. So it worked like it's supposed to. So this is my quadratic now. Remember, it started out x to the fourth. After I did synthetic division once, x to the third. After I do it a second time, it's x squared. So this is x squared minus x plus 1 equals 0. That's the equation I have to solve now. Since that's not a 0 for b, I'm going to have to use the quadratic formula to finish this up, to find my 2 non-real ones, all right? So I just do it here. X equals -b, and b is -1, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. Again, you guys should know that formula. So that gives me a +1, 2 down here, and I get a +1 minus 4 So that's a negative 3. Can I simplify that radical? No. The only thing I can do is what? Since it's negative. Pull the I out. Right, Maddie? Yeah. So there's my other 2 zeros. My 2 non-real, my imaginary ones. So here's my 4 answers. Negative 1, positive 5, 1 plus I radical 3 over 2, and 1 minus I radical 3 over 2. Questions? Simple, right? That's what we did yesterday, Serenity. Had to do a little extra work because we couldn't see all our zeros when we put it in the calculator. No questions? Connor, you good? All right. So, homework answers. I don't know why I didn't have 1 on there. But let me tell them to you. And then if there's any we need to go over, we can. This was page 196. Okay. Gotta get to the right page. Number 1 was 3 zeros, and they are negative 5, negative 2, and 3. Number 5, there's 5 of them. 0, 1, positive I radical 2 over 2, and negative I radical 2 over 2. One of those works twice. Which one, 0 or 1? Did it bounce off of 0 or 1? Anybody draw a picture of the graph? No? One of those has to work twice because there's only 4 answers and there's supposed to be 5, right? Number 5. There's 4 answers, negative 1, positive 2, 1 minus I radical 3 over 2, and 1 plus I radical 3 over 2. So like that warm-up we did. Number 7, negative 1, positive 1, 2, and 4. Number 9, negative 2 twice, 1 and 3. 11, negative 3, negative 1, positive 2i, and negative 2i. And 13, negative 4, negative 1, 2, I radical 2, and negative I radical 2. Let's stop there for a sec. Any questions on any of those you'd like me to go over? Connor? 3? All right, so 3 is right here on the board, so I'll just move this over and type it in. And we need 4x to the 5th minus 8x to the 4th plus 6x to the 3rd. If I pulled a 2x cubed out of there, I might be able to factor it. Okay, but we'll just use the calculator. All right, so that's kind of weird looking because it looks like it goes through 0, 0. All right, but I think it bounces off of 0, 0. It's just hard to tell. Okay, so I'm going to do my box. Like I showed you yesterday. Zoom box. And I'm going to make a box in that area just to see what's going on there at that 0. Putting a box around there. Oh, that's what happened. Okay. I think I mentioned this yesterday, but what's happening as it crosses 0 through? It's bending, right? You kind of see how it did that? When it bends as it crosses, that means it works at least 3 times, an odd number of times. So if I were to factor this out, we could see it better. All right. If I take out the 2x cubed as a GCF, and then I got a 2x squared minus 4x plus 3, if I set this equal to 0 to solve it, I divide by 2, and I get x cubed equals 0. How do I get x? Cube root it, right? If it was x squared equals 0, we square root, right? So I cube root, and the cube root is 0, 0. So since it's x to the third, 0 is working 3 times. Because that would be 0 times 0 times 0, right? So zero is my 0, and it works 3 times because it bent as it crossed. And it went pretty fast, but I should have realized that as I'm looking at it. You can kind of tell. All right? So I would have to, do synthetic division, but I don't know, what's 2 times 3? 6? Are there factors of 6 that add up to -4? I don't think there is there? So I'm just going to use the quadratic formula to finish it up. Okay? So x equals -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4a. See, I'm getting sloppy because I didn't leave myself much room. All right? So I get 4, 8 plus or minus -4 squared is 16. -4 times 2 is -8 times 3 is -24. So that's a -8. Well, I can simplify that, pull a 2 out and an I. Give myself some more room here. So 4 plus or minus 2i radical 2 over 8. What number goes into all 3 of those? A 2, right? So 2 goes into 4 twice. 2 goes into 2i 1 time. And 2 goes into 8 4 times. So there's my other 2 answers. 2 plus I radical 2 over 4 and 2 minus I radical 2 over 4. That's my 2 non-real ones, my 2 imaginary, and then 0 works 3 times. There's my 5 total. That was a tricky one. Anything else up to 13? So if it bounces, you're thinking how many times it works? Bounces. 2. If it bends, like that did, 3. Okay? So don't forget that. That'll help you get through some of these. All right. Then we had 15 and 17, right? All right. So the degree is 4, and you see 2 of them, right? So how many are imaginary? 2. All right. This one, the degree is 2, and it doesn't hit at all. So they're both imaginary. That's all you have to do is look at it, right? It says determine the number of imaginary zeros for the function with the given degree and graph. All right. So this one was a 5, right? So we only saw 1, so there's 4 imaginary. Okay, if we had to do 16. Okay? All right. So use the calculator to find your zeros. The exponent, the degree, the degree of your polynomial. tells you how many you should expect to see. If you don't see that many that you're supposed to see, you have to do synthetic division to simplify it into a quadratic and then use the quadratic formula to finish it up. Unless b is 0, right? That one we had yesterday, when b was 0, because it was x squared plus 4. Just subtract 4 and square root both sides, so it'll be a lot quicker. Don't forget the plus or minus when you do that, right? Okay, so today we're going the other way. You know, today the book's going to give you the zeros, and you have to write the polynomial. Okay, we're going backwards. All right? So, let me show you how to do that. Conjugates, complex conjugates. A plus bi and a minus bi are complex or conjugates. All right? They come in pairs. 2i and negative 2i are complex conjugates. Okay? So, if they tell you 2i is an answer, a 0, that means negative 2i is also an answer. Okay? And then you're supposed to write that factor, and then FOIL. You're going to do lots of FOILing today to get it back to the original problem. Okay? So, here's 3 zeros for a polynomial. All right? And you have to find the polynomial that goes with those 3 zeros. So we're going backwards. We always start your factors x minus. All right? Always start your factors. So this has 3 factors because it gave us 3 zeros. So when I'm done, it's going to be x cubed. All right? So just put these numbers after x minus. So x minus 2. What's x minus negative 3? That ends up being plus 3. When you have fractions, Rosalie, you probably should watch this. When you have fractions, the denominator goes in front of the x, and the numerator goes after the minus. Denominator goes in front of the x. Numerator comes after the minus. All right? Now we just FOIL. And when we're done FOILing, multiply them together, we'll have our answer. Okay? Now, you can't FOIL 3 at a time. You got to go 2 at a time. So I'll just go these 2 first. So first, outside, inside, last, which is x squared plus x minus 6 times 4x minus 3. Okay? And then I got to multiply those 2. All right? So x squared times 4x is 4x cubed, and x squared times negative 3x is negative 3x squared. And then x times 4x is positive 4x squared. And x times negative 3 is negative 3x. And negative 6 times 4x is negative 24x. And negative 6 times negative 3 is a positive 18. Okay, so my answer is 4x cubed plus 1x squared minus 27x plus 18. If that was the problem, and I put it in my calculator and graphed it, the calculator, the graph would cross the x-axis at 2, negative 3, and 3/4. Okay? Okay? So we're just going backwards. So we started out with those 3 zeros, and then we figured out what its polynomial was that went with those 3. Okay? Okay, your book is going to say have a leading coefficient of 1. I'm not going to worry about that. It's much easier to do the fraction like this than put x minus 3/4. Then you're going to have to multiply by fractions and all that stuff, okay? So we're always going to change our fractions to the denominator in front of x minus whatever the numerator is. Okay, Brett.
Do you have to become positive when you put in
This 3?
Yeah.
Well, I always write
minus
minus.
the other 3.
This 3, yes.
Okay.
If it's a negative, it ends up being x plus because it's minus a negative. It's always x minus to start, but minus a negative turns into plus. That's why I did the 2 addition symbols. Okay? Now, what happens if they tell you there's an imaginary 0? How do I get it? The answer. Okay? So let's look at the second one here. Remember, if you have complex answers, they have conjugates. They come in pairs. So a lot of times the book won't tell you all of them. Right? They'll give you one of the imaginaries and one of the complex. All right? So if there's a positive 2i, there's also a negative 2i. If there's a 4 plus the square root of 6, if there's a 4 minus the square root of 6, there's also a 4 plus the square root of 6. So this has actually got 5 zeros. Even though they only gave you 3, the complex ones or the non-real ones have a pair with it. Okay? So here's what I have to do. I write x minus 2. I write x minus 2i. I write x minus negative 2i, which turns into what? Minus a negative is plus, right? And then I write x minus, and then 4 minus the square root of 6. And x minus 4 plus the square root of 6. It's always x minus. Okay? Now, when you do these, you must, very, very important, you must FOIL those 2 together to start, and your i's will all go away then. All right? You must do those 2 together, and all your radicals will go away. Okay? So, which one do you want to start? The green box or the red box? Green? Okay. Too slow. X times x. X times positive 2i. I always do alphabetical order with the i's. I comes before x. But if you put xi, that's okay. Negative 2i times x. And negative 2i times positive 2i is negative 4i squared. What happens to the 2i x's? One's positive, one's negative. Cancel. What do we learn about I squared? It turns out negative 4i squared to plus 4, right? Remember that? So, I've got, so far now, I've got x minus 2, and I've got x squared plus 4. All right? Now I'm going to do the red box. All right? X times x. X times negative 4. X times square root of 6. Okay? Negative 4 times x. Negative 4 times negative 4. Negative 4 times radical 6. Negative radical 6 times x. Negative radical 6 times negative 4 is positive 4 radical 6. And negative radical 6 times a positive radical 6 is a negative square root of 36. All right, what happens to this x radical 6's? Cancel. What happens to the 4 radical 6's? Cancel. What is the square root of 36? 6. So this is actually negative 6. So this answer is x squared minus 8x plus 10. Now there's no more i's and there's no more radicals. Okay? And then I just keep going. All right? You want to do purple times green or green times red next? Your choice. Purple and green? Okay. We'll make that black. So x times x squared, and x times 4 is 4x. Negative 2 times x squared is negative 2x squared, and negative 2 times 4 is negative 8. There's no like terms, so that one's done. So that was a good choice. All right, so now we got the last one. Black times red. We'll make it blue. All right, so we go x cubed times x squared, x cubed times negative 8x, x cubed times 10. Negative 2x squared times x squared is negative 2x to the 4th. Negative 2x squared times negative x is positive 16x cubed. Negative 2x squared times 10 is negative 20x squared. 4x times x squared is positive 4x squared. 4x times negative 8x is negative, oh, that's an x squared also, right? Oh, wait a minute, that was wrong. What did I do wrong? What was this supposed to be? To the what? Third, right? 4x times x squared is 4x cubed. Sorry about that. 4x times negative 8x is negative 32x squared. And 4x times 10 is 40x. Negative 8 times x squared is negative 8x squared. Negative 8 times negative 8x is positive 64x. And negative 8x, or no, I'm sorry, negative 8 times 10 is negative 8. All right, so there's my like terms, x to the 5th minus 10x to the 4th, 26 and 4, 30, x cubed. 52 and 8, 60, but all negative, so negative. 104. So that's a big poly. All right. So it takes time, but it's not that difficult. You guys know how to FOIL and multiply trinomials together. Okay. Don't forget, again, if they don't tell you both of them, remember there is 2 of them. They come in pairs. All right? They come in pairs, so don't forget that. Good job today.